Hey everybody, it is Doug from Hartwig. We're here at Hirsh Precision in Denver, Colorado, or just outside Denver, Colorado, up in Boulder, technically, here with another episode of Game-Changing Technologies. Hirsh is a longtime Okuma and Hartwig customer, having purchased their first Okuma in the early 1980s. We're joined by President Peter Doyle, so he can talk about the company, their history, their investment in technology, and their experience automating their Okumas with Fastems. If you have any questions, please leave it in the Q&A box below or leave a comment after this is broadcast on YouTube. Thank you guys very much for watching.
We would like to set the standard of excellence in precision machining and manufacturing solutions. And we've had a mission, more specifically, to provide the highest quality products and manufacturing services delivered on time. And then there's a second sentence to our mission. We are committed to continuous improvement and conducting business with integrity. Over half of what we do is supporting the healthcare sector, it's the medical community in some way. We make components for durable medical equipment that will wind up in hospitals. We've been investing in technology for a long time, really since the 1980s. We've always known that we could increase productivity by investing in that, and that way we could target, or we could focus our creative energies on designing a process. Our first Okuma was an LC10. We bought it in 1981, and Steve tells a great story. Steve Hirsh is our founder and our director of engineering. He really crashed that machine, that LC10. I mean, he thumped it. And so he calls Okuma, first CNC the company's ever bought. It's now been crashed. And a gentleman comes out. He speaks mostly Japanese. He shows up with a neat tool case and quietly works on the machine for a few hours. And the way Steve tells it, he wraps up his tools and he starts to leave, and Steve says, "Okay, how much do we owe you?" And the gentleman says, "Nothing." And Steve says, "You don't understand, this was our fault. We really crashed it." And he said, "No, with the quality of these machines, no matter what you'd done, it really shouldn't have broken down." From the beginning, we appreciated the design intent for the machine, which was around rigidity and durability. That plays such a large role in the return on investment for the company and in the quality and the precision of the parts you can achieve. We focus on character first, and we take the same approach with our partners. So there's a lot of great people out there. One of the things that we love about Hartwig is the degree of trust and clear communication that we can rely on. The service, that the maintenance has been prompt when we've needed it. Fortunately, we don't need it too often. The communication's been great. The responsiveness has been great when we had something that we needed. Hartwig's always been there. As far as Fastems goes, I've always loved seeing manufacturing technology and sort of get married, if you will. And Fastems has made very intentional investments in the software that runs the scheduling system and coordinates with the machines. The combination of the stout quality of Okuma, and then kind of the flexible automation and the software rigor that Fastems provides made for a really nice pairing for us. Those Okumas that we have connected to the Fastems system run north of 95% efficiency. And our goal is to break the world record currently at Fastems for utilization. So the Fastems logo has 8760 behind it, which is the number of hours in a year. And the last I heard, I think the world record is somewhere in the 7,800 realm. So if I can just tell you that we have a few people getting that level of production out of the system, then it's easy to make the case to say it's worth learning how to use that technology. And if you can find the right work for that system, you will love it.
And you look good in that video, Peter.
Well, I appreciate you touching it up for me.
Anytime. Well, thanks for doing this today. First off, congrats on your guys' success. This is really cool that we get to do this together today. We've
Thanks
got,
a lot for having me.
yeah, man. We've got a panel here to bounce some ideas and some questions off of. We've got Wade Anderson from Okuma, who's head of the tech centers there, as well as a product specialist group. We've got Lloyd McEldowney, who's regional sales manager for Fastems, and myself. So I'm here just to kind of get the questions and answers going and get the conversation going. But again, thanks for doing this, Peter. Right now, we've got about 45, 46 people on the webinar. So we expect some questions and would like to see some questions from the group. We have some questions here for you too that we've got, and I want to ask you with the group on the call. I'm sure they're thinking of questions now, but you know, you guys, as it relates to Fastems and Okuma, your system's been running now for close to, I want to say it's 4 years, right? Almost 5 years on the MU 4000s. And, you know, we get questions a lot like, hey, what were some gotchas or some aha moments that you guys had along the way in your automation journey, so that we can kind of teach our customers and help them so they don't stub their toe in their journey on automation. So would you mind sharing a couple of your aha moments that really drove you guys to automation, and maybe some things that you'd share that maybe some bumps in the road as well?
Absolutely. Great question. And I totally agree with the way you described it, that automation is a journey. I think that's not just a phrase. I mean, you know, moving how you invest towards automation can affect everything, really. So as far as aha moments, the investment and the Fastem system that we have with those MU 4000 machines has not been our first foray into multi-pallet machines. We did have multi-pallet machines for a number of years. And I think there was probably 3 aspects to the aha moments. One is the scheduling system that Fastems provides really enables a different level of productivity than running a multi-pallet machine. It brings a different capability to it. The second would be that it allows for shorter lead times and fewer setups. So, and then the third would simply be if the process is stable, you can run unattended at levels that we really had never done before. Mm-hmm. And so those were the 3 aspects that made us feel like the combination of Okuma and Fastems was going to be really powerful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we've had some similar comments from other customers, in that the reduction in setups going from a 3-axis to a 5-axis, or fixtures or things like that, was a huge benefit for them. Have you guys seen something similar to that?
Absolutely. I would say that we went from a setup almost to a 0 setup, frankly. When we redesigned some fixtures and had pallets that were a little denser on the Fastem system, and then we knew that work was going to repeat, and we could dedicate, you know, some of the tool pots in the matrix towards those. Mm-hmm. It meant that non-productive time was eliminated. So not only is that a saving, but you gain the time for more productive use on the machines that it used to be on. Mm-hmm. And the customer's happier because you're able to process their work faster. And because of the scheduling system in Fastems, you're even able to shorten lead times because it'll work it in when it can. Mm-hmm. So that's another, you know, industry trend of figuring out how 5-axis work can be used beyond just for 5-axis parts. And that's a good one. That's one that we've latched onto for a few years, and was also part of that journey for us.
Yeah, and I think, Wade, you hit it a little earlier when we were talking, is about the way they set up parts. They dovetail a lot of their parts, right? So you may dovetail them offline and then you throw them in the cell. Can you tell us a little bit more about your experience with that dovetailing?
Yes, you know, we structure our pallets to obviously we're looking for one and done. Mm-hmm. Sometimes we'll do a multi-sequence operation, and the dovetails are quickly done offline on a less valuable machine,
Right.
and then we can design that fixture to be kind of more dense, and it's worked really well for us, honestly.
Yeah. And those are some of the tricks of the trade that some of the viewers here that are watching, or just customers in general, like, hey, if we're going from 3-axis to 5-axis, how do we get the biggest bang out of our buck? Whether
Right.
it's automation or not, that we see more and more people trying to new and different things, and different tooling manufacturers, whether it's 5th-axis or Raptor, or there's a ton of them out there. But it's cool to hear your experience.
There's so many different types of automation and so many different applications based
Right.
on the geometry and the volume and a tooling strategy. I think you really have to commit to being a student of automation in order to do it well. It's there's really not like a silver bullet or a one size fits all.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Wade, were you going to ask something?
Yeah, quick question for Peter. You had mentioned tool pots in one of your earlier topics there. When you're looking at adding capacity to your shop, you went to the MU4000. What were the considerations when you started looking at tool capacity? And if I'm a customer and I'm looking at how do I get into automation, what are the things I need to think about in terms of the correct number of tools for the ATC or other ways to go about it?
That's a really great question. I would say for us, I'm not sure if we do it perfectly, but I would consider materials, right? That's going to govern how often you need to replace certain tools and how many sister tool pots you might need to reserve. I would consider how much of, how many common tools you might be able to leverage across different items. And the mix of work is a big driver for us in terms of how we structured our tools. So for us, we really do have a large mix of work on our Fastems system. And there are many toolkits which don't share a lot of common tools. And so we've had to do what we can, but we also wanted to purchase and include as many tool pots as we could on the machines. So we went with the largest cabinet. And I know Fastems also guided us a little bit on our vision for the system in the future to help us understand, when a tool rabbit might be appropriate, or how our mix of work would be kind of best, would affect what we ended up purchasing. So material, mix of work, I would say probably precision as well. If you're at the upper limits of the capabilities of a machine, you might really need to be thinking about a presetter and a balancer and either heat shrink or kind of how you would manage moving tools in and out, whether that's active RFID tool holders or something like that. But so those are the drivers that we might consider when we think about tool strategy. It's every time you run out of tool pots and you have to change it over, that's that's time you want to save ideally.
Right. You mentioned the mix of parts. A thing that I hear a lot from people in the field is they say they can't automate because they run high mix, low volume work. What's your take on that?
Well, that is why we purchased this system. I mean, I don't know if you teed it up purposely like that, but honestly, that we have been a high mix shop. We're not a high volume shop. And it was the scheduling system and the way that this multi-pallet system was arranged that allowed us to, we can dedicate only one pallet to a particular item, and we still have, gain the same advantages as if we had 10 pallets dedicated to an item. We have not needed a high volume to realize the benefits. We have not needed a high volume of any, one item. So if there's anybody out there thinking automation is for, the higher volume of parts, I'd say keep looking. There's definitely more and more these days some great high mix, low volume solutions. But Wade, on that tooling question, I know you're a pro in this area. I'm kind of wondering, what did I miss? I mean, when I talked about what we consider for tooling, what is there anything else, any other factors that drive a tooling strategy that you would encourage somebody to consider?
I'm always a fan of more is better, whether it's on the machine or if it's in the system in general. But one of the items, and you touched on it a little bit, but it's really the communication part. So even if you have the redundancy and you've got the number of pots, part of automation, it's not just getting parts in and out of the machine, it's how do you get information in and out of your work process and in the machine control itself. So you had touched on RFID chips. There's a lot of different solutions for that to be able to transfer that data electronically to the control. And even as much as tool offsets, being able to update tool offsets without having to have that manual intervention. I think that's a component that a lot of people, they'll invest heavily on the big ticket, automation pieces, and they shortcut those processes, and they're not getting the people out of the process the way they could if they looked at everything from its entirety.
Yes, I totally agree. Active, RFID is just one, way to do it. But when we talk about automation and running unattended, the flow of information is critical. And I think that's a lesson that I've learned, is that you kind of have to be willing to really study your systems and the flow of data and the flow of information, and your team has to be willing to, look at those systems probably and figure them out more than maybe on less automated machines. Okuma has tool management, right? Some tool management features in the controls. Fastems has tool management. There's other tool management providers. And I would say just one guide for, how to invest in technology is, it's going to evolve. And so you're never going to be able to get one solution installed in your shop that's going to work, for the next 50 years. So ideally, I would recommend working with partners that are going to be able to grow with you and that are more agile. Like, we appreciate the fact that we've been able to integrate our own systems with Okuma and Fastems to the extent that we have, and we've got other, platforms as well. I would be a little leery of, automation solutions that don't play well with others, just because, they're gonna end up creating that fence around themselves, and it might not, facilitate the growth because it doesn't facilitate the communication flow.
That's an excellent point.
What else? You guys are asking me kind of about our aha moments and moving this way, but I'm wondering, when you guide a customer, what do you look for? What questions? I mean, I know how you worked with us, but what comes to mind for you in terms of choice points for somebody considering an investment like this?
I'll take one stab at it, Greg, and then pass it over to you. But a lot of times when I'm talking to customers, I want to go back to the mission. What's the mission of the company? And I don't know your mission verbatim, but the first part of your mission is producing the highest quality parts and then providing the best service, something along those lines. Am I kind of on base?
Right.
So from that, I would look at, okay, that's my mission. Now break it up into two folds. How do I accomplish that mission, for one, but then also realize I'm not trying to accomplish that mission in a vacuum. There's competitors out there, and I need to understand what that landscape looks like, and how do I get a competitive edge over how other people would be servicing the same industry that I'm looking at. Then
it evolves. Every investment you make ends up changing your value proposition to a customer, right? So the more you know what your sweet spot is, the better for you and the better for the customer.
Right. Yep.
Yeah.
That's my starting point. I'll turn it over to Greg.
It's good. I would agree with what you're saying. And when we talk about sweet spots, we really look at like an 80-20 rule. So 80% of the parts that you guys want to run, you want to be able to run in the cell. And maybe there's parts that are too small or too big. Maybe that's at 20% that you might want to outsource or do on other machines. But that's what we look at really, is what's the 80-20? Where you really get the bang out of your buck for the parts that you guys want to run across your platform. And we kind of design the systems and machine sizes and tooling based on that 80-20 rule. And that's just a simple, quick reference point, just to something to think about and talk about with the customer, because we don't really want to sell them machines that they're too big, or they're too many tools, or they're too expensive, and then it doesn't end up working out. So we don't want to upset customers. We want them to be happy. So that's kind of where we start, is 80-20 rule. And then from there, it kind of depends on, is it the material type? What kind of spindle RPM are we going to need, or taper, or whatever. But we do some pretty deep dives, and that's kind of where we start. And sometimes customers start with a bar feeder for automation, right? Or sometimes they'll start with a robot. And you guys have bar feeders. You have part ejection systems on your LT. You have some other things that have automation on them. So, your jump into automation wasn't a stick my toe in the water with a Fastems system and 3 Okuma 5-axis. You guys have been running automation for 15 or more years. So
Yes.
you were ready for that. It was just a matter of time.
There's a sense of pride when you hear about in the 1980s, Hirsh bought like a 6-axis robot and put it on the floor. And all the Homo sapiens around here are glad because we actually watched that thing die. It ran so much that we actually, endured beyond the robot's life. So, that was way back when, maybe a different situation now, but we have invested in automation and technology for a long time. It was about productivity, right? We wanted to preserve our time to work with the relationships we had with our customers and to be as productive as we could with the space that we had.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I agree. I would say the journey it's just ongoing. When I think about this particular systems, this set of machines and the Fastems, it affected our kind of operator flow. It affected how we launch new parts. It affected our scheduling. It affected quality. It affected a number of different aspects, right? Even just facility layout. And so when we first heard about Fastems and we heard the system is modular and scalable, we thought, okay, we like those words. This is like Legos, right? So we picked the longest stretch of our building to allow for that expansion. And then what we realized as we got into it is, it evolved, right? So initially we had one machine on it, then we had 2, now we have 3, and the ratio of tool pots to spindles and pallets to spindles and the mix of our work with customers has evolved and the volumes have changed. And so we're always learning. It's an ongoing, but that's the fun part about this business. I mean, that's figuring out how to get the most utilization out of the system is a great adventure, right? Who doesn't want to figure that out? It feels good.
And so Wade's not going to like this, but I'm going to go ahead and say it anyway. One of the things that's really nice about Fastems is that if you say you wanted to put a different brand of machine tool on that system, you can. Where on other brands, pallet systems, you can only put their machines on there, their brands on there. But heck, if you wanted to put a different brand on there, if you wanted to put a horizontal on there, if you wanted to put a mill turn on there, parts washing, metrology system, there's lots of things you can do with the Fastems system that you can't do with just a standalone system. So that's a nice feature that Fastems offers as standard. It's just out of the box that way.
Yeah, I would give, I don't know how many software programmers exist now in Finland, Lloyd, but you guys deserve a lot of credit for figuring out that was a missing piece in this whole equation. Not only to be able to integrate different hardware, but the fact that the scheduling software actually can work for things that aren't even on that Fastems system. I don't know if everybody on the call today understands that, but if you can align yourself with kind of a high utilization strategy for scheduling, then give Loy a call, because that scheduling software has continued to become more advanced since we got involved in it, and it's powerful. It's got a lot of different capabilities.
Yeah, I don't know the numbers, but I do know the software team in our company is the highest number of employees per department in the company. So
yeah. So most companies in this industry, right? Most machining companies, job shops, don't have a whole lot of full-time dedicated software developers on hand. And so when you're working with a partner who can provide that capability, it really can be that missing link, I think. So.
Yeah. I think we've taken up enough of everybody's time. I'd like to do a shameless plug just for a second. If anybody on the call would like to see an Okuma Fastems system, we have one in most every state that we represent Okuma in. So over 75 Okumas today in our territory on Fastems systems for over 20 years. And now I'm done with my commercial, but I just again want to say thanks, Peter. This is really cool that you allow us to do this. Appreciate you and the partnership, and heck, it's just been a great ride, and we're thankfully to be a little part of your success. So.
Oh, me too. You guys have been fantastic to work with. So
Thanks.
happy to do it.
All right. Well, if anybody has anything else, we're going to go ahead and hop off. No more questions are in the chat room. So thanks, everybody. And again, thank you, Peter.